Hey there, it's Mr. Stu. In today's lesson, we're going to learn some effective communication skills. We'll talk about the filters that affect communication and how communication is received, and we'll also talk about some ways that you and whoever you're communicating with can have more positive communication. And stay tuned at the end of this video for an activity that you and a child in your life can do to have a more effective and fun conversation, and an activity for you to identify some of the filters that you might be using along the way. Let's check it out. There is a reason that good coffee reminds us of good conversation, and there's a reason that good coffee leads to good conversation. That's because coffee and conversation are made the same way. Maybe you're not a coffee person, that's okay. The analogy will still hold true. Let's talk just real quick about what it means to have appropriate and consistent conversation with our children. Appropriate. Are we focusing on topics that are developmentally appropriate for our children? And are we focusing on topics that are appropriate, that are leading our children to understand what's right and wrong, what they should do and what they should not do, and what they should expect and should not expect? Are our conversations appropriate? If they are appropriate, then it's much more likely we're going to be able to move into that secure attachment. If they're inappropriate, it's much more likely that we're going to move into that anxious or anxious avoidant attachment. Is our conversation consistent? Does our child know that we are the ones to come to if they have anything that they would like to discuss, if they have anything that they would like to share? We are the ones to come to. Is that conversation consistent? Not overbearing, but is it consistent? Does our child know that we are available to talk? The more consistent we have, the more secure it's likely to be. And the less consistent we are, the more likely we are to move into that anxious avoidant or avoidant attachment style. I told you that making good conversation is just like making good coffee. I don't know much about making good coffee, but I do know about making coffee. I make some every single morning. And what I do is I take some coffee grounds and I scoop them into a filter, and I take the carafe and I fill it up with water and I pour the water in, and using the water and the coffee grounds, I expect that coffee will come out. But there's a problem. The problem is that coffee passes through a filter. And if the filter is bad, if the filter is dirty, or if the filter is damaged, if the filter is wrong, then what comes out may not be good coffee. And the same is true with our conversation. If our filter is bad, if our filter is damaged, if our filter is wrong, then those ingredients that we put in to make good conversation will not come out as coffee. They'll come out as something else. Have you ever had this happen? Have you ever wanted to say, oh, you might get cold, but instead it came out, ooh, that looks pretty skimpy? Have you ever wanted to say, oh, you could do that better, but it came out as, I'm so disappointed in you? The filter that you use to deliver your communication and the filter through which your communication is received will determine what the ingredients make. You might have had all of the great ingredients. You may have focused on watching your voice tone and making sure that you don't become upset and watching your nonverbal communication. But if you don't focus on the filter of both yourself and the person that you're talking to, then what comes out will not be good conversation. It will be something that you did not plan for. Maybe this happens to you. I want to talk to us today about the filters that our conversation passes through. I use an acronym that's used by Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, and various other groups, and it's called the HALT acronym. It's H-A-L-T. It's hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. H-A-L-T, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And I want to talk today about the filters of HALT. That if you are hungry, the way that you speak and the way that you receive communication will be different. If you are angry, the way that you communicate and the way that you receive communication will be different. If you are lonely, the way that you give communication and receive communication will be different. If you are tired, the way that you give communication and the way that communication is received will be different. And the same is true for your child. If your child is hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, then your conversation is passing through that filter. Let's talk first about hunger. We definitely mean physical hunger here. Is your child hungry? Are you hungry, physically hungry? If you are hungry, then it is not long before you become hangry. And if your child is hungry, it is not long before they become hangry. Do you want to be having a hangry conversation? If not, it's okay to hold off the conversation, no matter how important you thought it was. Hold off that conversation. Take care of the hunger first. Because then you're fixing the filter of the conversation. So the ingredients that you put in, the verbals and the nonverbals, the words that you choose to use and how you choose to say them, when they pass through, they'll make something good, not something that you didn't expect. Deal with the filter of hunger first. The second is the filter of anger. Are you angry, or is the person that you're trying to communicate with angry? If so, the way that you are about to communicate and the way that that communication is about to be received is very different. The last time that you left the person that you were going to try to talk to, the last time you left each other, was it a good ending or was it a tough one? Are you about to talk to your child for the first time since your argument this morning? They've been at school all day and now they're coming home. Guess what? They're still angry. You are still angry. Deal with the anger first. How do you do that? Maybe you take a break for yourself and you choose to calm yourself down. You use some different self-control strategies. You use some different self-care techniques that we'll talk about later. What about with your child? Maybe you give your child some time to themselves and you look at them and you say, I see that you're really upset. How about we take 10 minutes right now? Let's take 10 minutes apart from each other and then we'll come back so that we can think about what we want to say before we start to say it. If you are hungry or angry, the way that you give communication and the way that that communication is received will be different, and it may end up making something that you never expected. Lonely. Are you lonely, or is the person that you're communicating with lonely? Do they feel alone? I don't mean physically alone, but does this conversation feel like an attack? Are you trying to estrange yourself? Are you trying to marginalize them? Are you trying to stigmatize them? If so, then the way that you are about to communicate and the way that that communication is about to be received are going to be very different. It's passing through a broken, damaged filter of loneliness. When we talk with our children, we need to make sure that they always understand that it is not me versus you, it is us versus the problem. Let me say that again. When we talk with children, we need them to understand it is not me versus you, it is us versus the problem. Otherwise, we come up with a filter of loneliness where that child feels that they are alone in this battle and they are going to try to fight against us. Do you want your conversation to pass through that filter? And the final is tired. And there's all sorts of different ways to be tired. Guess what? If your child has just come home from school, or if they've spent all day in online school, they're tired. Whether mentally, emotionally, or physically, your child is tired. Did you sleep well last night? Did you have a long day at work? Have you been killing it at work but mentally drained? Did you have an argument and now you are just emotionally tired? If you are tired, or if the person that you're talking to is tired, you need to address that first, because otherwise the ingredients that you put in, the words that you chose and the way that you chose to say them, wow, they are well-meaning and have great intention. They're about to pass through a broken, damaged filter, and you're about to get something that you don't expect. Address the filters first. Halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, or if the person that you're communicating with is hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, then you need to pause and fix the filter before you try to communicate. Once you've gotten through that, though, there's some really simple and easy things that will help us keep conversation appropriate and consistent. If you are speaking, be brief. How many times have you caught yourself lecturing your child and you never meant it to turn into a lecture, but it definitely did? When I'm doing a therapy session, I try to limit my responses to 10 words or less. It is my goal to never speak more than 10 words at a time. Can you take on that challenge with your child when you're talking about things that are a little bit more difficult? Can you take on the challenge that you're not going to lecture your child, you're going to be brief, so that your message is not all convoluted, but that you are going to do your best to pick the best ingredients to put into your conversation maker to make the best conversation that you can. Be brief, be clear. Be brief, be clear. Clear, what does clear mean? It means that the issue that we started talking about is going to be the issue that we end talking about. It means that I'm not going to pile on one issue after the other as to all the 25 different reasons I'm mad at you. It means that if we start talking about one issue, we're going to keep talking about that one issue all the way until both of us have decided we are done with that one issue. It's not going to say, oh, you forgot to get me lunch. And then it's going to turn into, and you don't care about me, and I hate you, and you never. We're not going to let it spiral like that. We're going to be brief, we're going to be clear, and we're going to be filter-free. We're going to address those things of being hungry, angry, lonely, or tired before we decide to speak. When we do speak, we're going to be brief, we're going to be clear, and we're going to be filter-free. Now, what about when it's your turn to listen? When it's your turn to listen, make sure that you are looking at whoever it is that you're talking to. If you are talking with a child, get down on that child's level. Look them in the eyes. We ask children all the time to make eye contact with us, but we are so rarely willing to make eye contact with them. Get down, make eye contact with your child. Listen, engage. Don't be looking at your phone while your child is telling you about their school day and then wonder why your child doesn't want to talk much about their school day. Put the phone away, make eye contact, and give full attention to what your child is trying to say to you. When it's your turn to talk after they're finished, you want to make sure that you summarize without commenting. At the end of my workday, almost every day, I call my mom or my dad, and I make fun of them now because it seems like they have traded off who answers the phone on what day, because they know that what's about to happen is because I've only used 10-word responses all day long, everything that's been spiraling in my brain is about to come word vomiting out. And so they answer the phone, and as I'm talking and word vomiting and going on all these tangents, they reply, and they say, ooh, so you're telling me that you had some good sessions today. Now, while I don't disclose any information that's personal about those sessions, I can let them know. Ooh, it sounds like you had some good sessions today. Ooh, it sounds like that was a tough day. Without commenting and giving their opinion, they've done a great job of being able to summarize what I've said. Do you do the same with your child? When your child comes home and says, oh my goodness, so-and-so got in a fight with so-and-so, and oh wow. It sounds like there's some tough stuff happening at school. And you know what? Your child will continue talking. Yes, there is some tough stuff happening at school. And as a matter of fact, Miss So-and-so doesn't even know what to do. Ooh, so it sounds like there's even times where you don't know what to do. Yeah, there are some times. Summarize without commenting. If you'll do that, you and your child can have some appropriate and consistent conversations. And here's the final thing to remember, is that if your child gives you time to talk, that doesn't mean it's time for you to take over. Just because they've allowed you to summarize, or just because they've asked your opinion on something. It doesn't mean that it's now time for you to go on your tangent and to spout all those things that have been flying through your head while they've been talking. Because remember, when it's our turn to speak, even if we've just listened to our child rant and rave about something, it's time now to be brief, to be clear, and to be filter-free. It's not time for us to take over the conversation and change it to be whatever we want the conversation to be. If we'll do that, then we can have effective communication. The ingredients that we put in, the words that we choose, and the nonverbals and the ways that we choose to say those things can go in. And because we've been clear, we've been brief, and we've been filter-free, then those ingredients that we put in, our words and the way that we choose to say them, can make some excellent conversation. Let me close by saying this. Children process things differently than adults do. Adults have the vocabulary for different words. Children a lot of times have to speak in symbols or they have to speak in sentences when adults could use a word. And so being brief and being clear is not about being cold and distant. Being brief and being clear is using the least amount of words that I possibly can in order to give you the message so that it doesn't get mixed up. Because if I put coffee and Gatorade powder into the coffee maker and then turn it on, I'm going to get a blend of coffee and Gatorade. And so I'm going to use the least amount of stuff that I can to make the most beautiful conversation. If we'll do that and we keep our conversation appropriate to our child's developmental level and consistent, we let them know that we are the ones that they can come to talk about anything. If we are brief, if we are clear, if we are filter-free, if we listen wholeheartedly, not with judgment, but really to understand, then we can have amazing conversation with our children that is appropriate and consistent, and it will help build more secure attachment. And that is how to make some good conversation. Hopefully this lesson has helped you learn some ways that you can have better communication with the children in your life. Here's an activity that you can try out, especially if you're tired of your after-school routine being, hey, how was school? And you just hearing good and then no more contact. One thing that you can do is talk at the beginning of the school day about the question that you're going to ask when your child gets home. Maybe even let your child come up with the question. As a therapist, so many times at the end of a session, I'll say, what's one thing I can ask you about next time we meet? As a parent, you can use that same tactic. Look at your child in the morning and say, what's one thing I can ask you about when you get home from school today? They'll be excited to answer the question, and you'll hopefully get an answer that's more than just good. Now, here's an activity you can try for yourself. We identified 4 filters to communication. We said that if you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, that it will affect the way that you both communicate and receive communication. Which one of those is the most difficult for you? Now, come up with a game plan. If you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, what are you going to do to make sure you still have some effective communication? You can do it. Just take care of the filters first. I hope this lesson was helpful for you. Until next time, spread the word and share the love.